Hello and welcome back to Melior Studios, where we'll be continuing our color grading masterclass in Davinci Resolve. In this particular lesson, we'll be looking at Powerwindows, which is basically a way of masking within Davinci Resolve. Within the first lesson, we went from starting from scratch with your color grade to getting a really nice ending point using something like the Davinci Resolve Starter Power Grade. And we did briefly go over Powerwindows, but there's so much more that is to be known about the Powerwindows and so much more that we can kind of teach you, hence why we have essentially a 1-hour lesson just on Powerwindows. We had some awesome feedback with the first lesson, and so thought we may as well carry on this series and keep teaching you a little bit more in depth about each particular aspect within the color tab, and maybe even slowly delving into the editing tab as well. So let's hop back into Davinci Resolve and look at Powerwindows. Hello and welcome back to Davinci Resolve, where we're going to continue our Davinci Resolve color grading masterclass and look at Powerwindows and essentially how to use Powerwindows to mask particular parts of an image to kind of enhance an image, I guess. I think that's it. An okay way of putting it. It probably wasn't. We have these clips here that we're going to go over, and I've brought in these clips because they do showcase a different number of different situations where I can kind of showcase to you different things that we can kind of do and different techniques within Powerwindows themselves. So now you're probably wondering, what is Powerwindows? Well, if I go over to my color tab, I'm going to close down my timeline so we have a little bit more space. I'm going to close down my gallery. If we come over here, we have this circle. And if I was to click this circle, this is where your Powerwindows all sit. Now, Powerwindow is basically a simple masking tool. If I was to create this power window here, and I was to press Shift-H, which allows you to see the selection of your power window, you can see whatever's inside of this circle is going to be selected. Now you can move this power window by pressing the middle dot and just dragging it around. You can move your power window by coming into the transform here and moving it left or right and up and down, and even the size. You can even increase the softness here. So where the white with the blue stroke around it, that's stretching it out. This is vertical right here, and you can just stretch it out however you wish. The red circle on the outer edge is feathering. So often when you do your Powerwindows and you're masking, in this case I'll refer to it as masking sometimes, even though masking can be something else in a way, you want it to be a little bit feathered out. It depends on how clean of a mask you want it to be. For this, so for something like this, if I was to just simply, I'm just going to add contrast, and I was press Shift-H to come back to my selection. Now when I see my burger here, and I've seen the power grade, you see there's a really harsh line on the edges. And for a lot of the times when you're working with Powerwindows, you may not want that. So like I mentioned, you can come over to the softness, and you can decrease, well, you can increase this. Alternatively, you can just drag this line like this. Now if I was to go off, if you wanted to turn off this overlay, I guess, that's being shown here, just click off to your power window, any other node, and it'll kind of disappear. So now you can see, if I was to press Command D, just to turn off my node layers and turn it back on, you can see that what we've done here is we have added a power window with just a loads of contrast, but now it's feathered out so much nicer that you can't even tell that we've added a power window here. So that is Powerwindows in a nutshell in terms of the usability and what we're going to go through. Within Powerwindows themselves, here we've selected, I think it's called an ellipse, I just call it a circle, but there's also squares, and I've never used this one in my life actually. I'm surprised because these basically do the same thing, so I'm unsure about this middle one. But then there's pen tool. Pen tool basically means you can draw however you wish around your subject, as I've done so beautifully here. And then finally we have a gradient one, which is also great for stuff like skies and just bringing in darkness or lightening up a certain edge of a particular frame, which is also something we're going to be utilizing a lot today. So that is Powerwindows in a nutshell, and I'll be going over how you can track Powerwindows. So for something like this, say if you was to draw over a car, like we wanted to do like a mask over this car, how can we go about actually tracking this car? Because if I was to just leave this power window here, I mean, the car stays in the same position, so it's not really the best shot. Maybe we won't use that clip to showcase that, but maybe for something like this, where we do have a character moving, and I just wanted to do a simple eclipse maybe to brighten up our subject here. And then if I was to press play, you can see he moves out of position. So whenever this happens, I might as well go over it now. Whenever you do have a power window and you need it to track, essentially, basically what tracking means is if this power window is attached to a subject and you want it to follow it, that's basically what tracking is. What you can actually do is there's this tracker on the right hand side of our power windows here, and you're going to ensure within the tracker you have your effects, you have your stabilizer, and you have something called a window. And the window is tracking for your window. So now all that you have to do is press this back and forward arrow, and you'll hopefully see, because Davinci usually does a very good job, it's going to track it. So if I press this, it did a terrible job. It absolutely did a terrible job. But this could be because we haven't graded the clip. When there's a lot of contrast in an image and colors and there's a lot of separation, it's a lot easier for the power windows to kind of track. So maybe we'll come back to this particular image and showcase again. But maybe if I was to, we're not going to focus on color grading as such in this particular video. So I'm really going to do the most messiest color grade that you can. So I'm just going to add a bit of contrast. I'll brighten up the clip using my gamma a little bit, and then I come into my saturation and I'll add some saturation, probably add even more contrast here. So we've gone from before and after. Very simple, terrible grade, but hopefully you'll be able to see that if I was to draw a mask over his face like this, make a new node, draw over his face like this, come over to tracker, track it back and forth, you can see that what it'll do is it'll track the person's face pretty well. And see on this node we wanted to make it more orange, we can do that this way. So this is tracking. Not the best example, my apologies, but I'll try and find a better example for you. So let's go into tracking. Let's go into Power Windows. So what I will do again, maybe towards the end of this tutorial, I go into tracking. I go into color grading and then Power Windows. But for now, we're just going to try and keep the grades as simple as possible. I'm not going to concentrate them as too much because we do have the first, I'll call it episode of the Masterclass. That was like a full color grading tutorial. So if I was to make this into a vertical resolution, so this is, we get a little bit more real estate here. If you're working hopefully with the new Davinci Resolve 20, we have this cool window now for vertical frames. So it's a lot easier to color grade like social media stuff, etc, etc. So we have this awesome, very nice burger, because I did have it after I took the video. And what I'll do is, I'm not going to concentrate on color grading. I know in the previous tutorial we did use Davinci Resolve Starts Power Grade, and we'll also be using that in this tutorial as well. I go over that very shortly. So what I'll do is a very similar thing to the previous clip. I'm just going to add, I'll just make maybe 5 nodes, so you can press Alt S, or I think it's Option S, or Control. I'm not sure what it is on Windows, but I'll just make 5 nodes like this. And what I'll do is in my first node, I'll just add a little bit of contrast like this, because this is shot in log, so we need to add a lot of contrast back into the image. That's like a nice level of contrast. Maybe you want to shift the pivot down a bit. Go over to node number 2, and then here maybe I'll add some saturation. And now we have a somewhat okay starting point for our image. Now, then we can go into utilizing Power Windows. And I'm going to keep it, again, very simple. I'm not going to do any layer mixer or parallel mixer nodes as of yet. We're just going to go in a serial fashion, just one node at a time. It's basically one node to another node to another node, which is basically what a serial node tree kind of is, which is this. So I'm going to go to node number 3, and then we're going to go to our Power Windows. Now, we have our image here, we have our burger, we then have, let's call it the sky, or the background here, And then we have the foreground of the place, well, of the table that is here. Let's say we wanted to make this upper half, we wanted to make it darker, or we wanted to brighten it up. We can do that with the gradient power window. If I was to press this gradient power window, this will bring this here. Now, if you wanted to see what your selection looks like, you're going to press Shift H, and it's going to show you your selection. If you can't see that, come over to this half, this rectangle with a circle inside, where it says highlight, and it'll show you what's being highlighted. Whatever is grey is not being selected, so whatever is just normal is what's being selected. Within this power window, on the circular one I showed you, you can just increase softness by moving the red dots. With the gradient one, you just drag the arrow and you just push it downwards, and this will give you a lot more of a gradual mask. I'm going to call it a mask, like this. And then you can press Shift H to come off it when you're happy with your selection. Then what I might want to do is you can then come over to your primary wheels, and maybe within my gamma, which is your midtones, so lift is shadows, gamma is midtones, gain is highlights, and offset is your global image right here. Now, let's say I wanted to darken the image, let's say. So I might come over to my gamma, and we can maybe darken this like this. And you see it's doing an okay job. Maybe you can also bring down the gain as well, because there are a few lights and highlights in it, so you can bring this down. And then you have a before and an after. And that maybe, if the lights in the background were too distracting, you can do this trick to kind of darken them out. If you really want to take them all out, just like bring things like severely down, and you have this you'll have this kind of shot like this. I know it's very rough, but you can kind of get a sense and an idea of how this can be used. Basically, now we've brought in a lot more attention to the actual burger here, but obviously I kind of like the lights, so I'm just going to reset everything. Maybe what I want to do instead is actually want to brighten them up ever so slightly, and I want to add a little bit of contrast to that background like this. I'm going to shift the pivot downwards like this. Now we have a before and an after, and I've just brought out the lights a little bit more, just because it kind of looks a little bit more cool. And often this is social media, and for social media, like often images with higher contrast and more like brighter images and images with a bit more color, they'll often get higher retention time. That's why stuff like YouTube thumbnails are often very bright and colorful, and that's how you catch people's eye, basically. So that's what we have right here. You could also then not just increase the brightness on darkness, you can actually add color into it as well. So if you wanted to add a little bit of a blue shift to it, you can add some blue shift in the offset. Alternatively, we can add some blue shift to the shadows, or you can literally just, if you're unsure about what colors to add, just drag. I'm dragging my lift, my shadows, and you can just drag it around and see which area actually do I kind of like the colors with, and what colors will kind of work with this particular burger. If you don't want to adjust the shadows too much, you can adjust the gain. Maybe I just want to add in a bit of warmth here, like this. So then you have a before and an after, and that warmth kind of looks pretty nice, like this. That's kind of cool. Maybe you just want to leave it at that, and that's completely fine. In node number 4, we have this, and maybe we actually want to darken this white area here because it's a bit of an eyesore, and it's just a lot, there's nothing happening there. Sometimes it works like as negative space, but here it's like, maybe it's a bit of an eyesore, and if you're like working in Lightroom and stuff, maybe you'd use another gradient masking tool to bring this up like this. So we can do this here. What I might do instead this time though, is instead of using a gradient tool, we can use our pen tool, just for the sake of it. And what we're going to do is we can draw a line here, like this. And we can just simply draw around this right here. You can see here that what it's done actually is that it's created a very harsh line almost right here, which is sometimes that you don't want. So I'm going to reset this, and what you can actually do is make a point here, hold your mouse, and you can actually pivot the point, and it kind of creates a really nice curve like this. And you can see as I move it along, it's creating this cool curve. So if you wanted a smoother edge, you can do this way. So that curve's a little bit nicer. I can do this here as well. and that's fine. Now you can see that curve that we've created for the initial part of the mask is just nice and curvy, and not super just like a sharp edge, not like a Cybertruck. So I'm going to bring this down here, bring this to this point, and then to finish it and complete it, what you will do is you're going to just connect the last dot with the first dot. Now when I press Shift H, we've done a lovely selection of this area. Before I actually do any color grading, what I might want to do is add a little bit of softness here. So I can increase the softness like this. This isn't doing anything. It's because with the pen tool, it's inside and outside. So if I was to increase this, you can see the inside, I'll press Shift H, we're increasing softness that way. But maybe I actually want to do it on the outside, just so I can get that upper rim edge of that plate this way. So this is looking pretty nice, and I can press Shift H. Now we can go onto our color grading, but maybe even before that, what we may want to do is actually track this. Because there is a little movement within this frame, I was just hand holding it, and I think I did zoom in after the shot, so this wasn't even the final shot. I can use tracking, and hopefully when I press tracking, you can see it did a pretty good job this time. Even just for very simple stuff like this, it's tracked that movement here, and when you press play, you can see that it's moving pretty nicely like this. Now I'm happy with this, and what I can do now is come over to gamma, or not, sorry, I can come over to probably my gain and just start darkening this up. Now you can make this black again, so we can bring this all the way down. I'll move myself here like this, and you can see, wow, it's so cool. And you've got rid of that distraction, and it's just looking a little bit more pizzazz. It's looking pretty cool. And you can see as I'm playing it, it's tracked it very nicely. Now say what I've done is I did it in the low part of the plate right here, but you could actually use the upper edge of that plate right here, and it all depends on your creative choices. Now while I'm here in the tracking window, what you may actually want to do is, if your tracking is not doing a good job, because sometimes it struggles, you can actually use keyframe. You can keyframe it yourself, basically. So if I was to, let's say that when I was playing it, this edge was like this when you played. What you can actually do is, where it says frame, you're going to press frame, and then you're going to essentially, when you move this along here, so maybe you then want this to start here, and then say as it's moving in like this, you're like, oh no, I don't want it to go there. What you're going to do is you're simply just going to drag this here, and what it's going to do, hopefully, is even if I make a point here, when I move this, you can see a keyframe has been made. Basically, a keyframe is a point within the timeline where it tells you to do a certain action. So in this certain action, it's basically telling that power window to stay in that position, not move inwards. So you'll find sometimes on certain subjects where your mask, pretend there's a mask around my face here, and I'm moving, it might like move like here, just like it'll jitter or something, and there might be one frame where, and you've made me like black and white, but there's still color here, then you'll have to use this technique possibly to drag that dot here and move it to that left, just for that one keyframe, just so it's kind of covering the full face. And it's kind of the same thing here, and then you can kind of see again, you want to bring that in like this, and then hopefully you have your keyframe. I know I did fake it here because I brought it in because it did do a really good job initially, but otherwise than that, very good job. You can also bring, like I mentioned, you can bring it up. So already, if you want to see a before and after of just your power windows that you've done, select your two nodes that I've done, node 3 and 4, and I'm just going to press Command or Control D. Now, you can see, again, I'll move myself. You can see a before and an after. And you can see kind of how much of a difference we've made. We haven't even color graded the clip. So this is a before and an after, and it's looking a bit better. I mean, again, what's better is very subjective, but you can definitely say that it's made a difference. And I wouldn't say in a bad way, probably more in the positive way. In node 5 here, maybe you wanted to throw in a bit of grading. So maybe we actually use our HDR wheels to bring back some of the highlights within the actual burger here. Maybe then for the overall clip, we then just like add a bit more warmth to the global image. Maybe add some blues. I'm covering it out. Bring some blues into our shadows, like this. And then you have a before and an after. And I mean, that's not looking yummy. Maybe I could add a bit more orange to the actual clip like this. And then finally, I'll end it off with some sharpening. So to sharpen an image, like we've gone through already in the first lesson, I can bring this down to maybe 0.48. And because it's social media, maybe I want to increase the scaling as well, which will kind of just, you can see here, look how much of a good, this is literally all to do with scaling. Okay, I keep forgetting, I get a little too close to the screen. Before and an after, and you can see just how much of a difference sharpening has made. This is the difference between color grade, without color grading and with color grading, just a very simple, almost like a teal and orange kind of look, I guess. And then overall, from what we started with all of the adjustments, minus the balancing at the beginning, before, let's say this is your rec image, and an after. And you can see the difference it makes in the end, and it's hopefully showcased to you the power of Powerwindows, which is what we're trying to showcase today. So overall, we have a before, which is S-Log3, just as shown on the Sony a7S III, to an after. And you can see how cool and awesome Powerwindows are when you can use them. And we've done very simple Powerwindows. I know the pen tool might be a little bit more on the intermediate to getting to advanced, but overall, hopefully it does make sense. And of course, for a lot of like the tracking stuff, this will be quite computer dependent sometimes on the CPU and GPU that your Davinci is using. So the faster computer that you'll have a much more fun and easy workflow with this. So we're happy with the burger clip. I'm happy, and I hope you are happy as well. Now let's look at maybe a portrait clip. So maybe we have this clip right here, and I will switch my Davinci back to horizontal. In the first lesson, we used the Davinci Resolve Start to Power Grade, so we're going to utilize this for this clip. Right click, press Apply Grade. This was shot on the Canon R5, so I'm going to come over to my CST, Canon Cinema Gamut C-Log3. That looks a lot better. I'm going to come over to my exposure balance. I'll reset everything. I'll just maybe bring the lift up a bit. I'm going to use my HDR. You can only really use this in the studio version. But if you don't have the studio version, you can use the primary wheels, no problem. But the studio version, with the HDR wheels, you just have so much more control over our character and over just our overall clip, basically. So before and then after, it's looking a lot better here. Maybe I don't want to bring that down too much. Maybe I just bring down the overall. It's fine. It's a decent starting point. And maybe what I wanted to do, you could throw in color grading, but we're not going to look at color grading. Within the Start to Power Grade, again, I'll link this in the description below. This is a free Power Grade and Node tree that you can download for completely free on our website. We already have free Powerwindows right here that we've already selected, and I've made for you already. And I'm going to showcase to you when you can kind of utilize these. And I have free adjustment nodes right here as well. And this is where you can also add in your Powerwindows. So we've already gone through all this, so I'm not going to explain it in terms of the node tree structure. But now what I want to do is maybe I want to brighten up our person like this. So I'm just going to come over to my power window. I can move this power window to our character here, and I can drag this like this, and then I can press Shift H. And it's a very gradual selection. We're not trying to change like the color of the skin too much. Maybe we're just trying to brighten up this particular area. So what we want to do is maybe we actually use curves this time, just to add a bit of contrast and raise the highlights a bit on the face like this. And maybe you actually bring things down a bit, so then you have a before and an after. And we just added a little bit of contrast and I guess a little bit of life to the particular clip. Maybe then I'm not going to try and touch color grading, as I want to try and showcase to you. Maybe even without color grading, I mean, this is Powerwindows are a part of color grading, but as in adding color and stuff to the global image, can we create a really nice look? And I think maybe we can. So if I was to come over here now and I go to my color slicing, I can then maybe come over to my density tool and increase this like this, and come over to my saturation tool, add a bit of saturation. You can see if the skin's a little bit off, what I might actually want to do is just come over to my skin, increase the saturation here, and it's not doing a great job because the skin just doesn't seem to be falling into the skin. It's falling more into the reds, I guess. So what we can actually do is just shift the hue more towards the oranges and increase the density, increase the saturation ever so slightly. And we can do the same with the oranges, increase the density, increase the saturation ever so slightly. Then you have a before and an after. And we've added a little bit to this image just through this. It's looking okay. There are two more power windows within this. This is just one going from the bottom up, which is a gradient power window, and then we have one going from the top down. So for the bottom up one, often what many people like to do, and I like to do, is simply just darken it. I can use my primary wheels again. I can just darken this. You can use your offset as well. And you can see before and an after. And we're kind of closing in this character. We're boxing them off a little bit and bringing a little bit more attention to the character themselves. You can then bring this up maybe like this. Maybe you don't want it to be so harsh, so you can bring this up ever so slightly, before and then after. And it's looking okay, it's looking all right. Then we have one coming from the top. Maybe from the top, we actually want it to come from this window side, so we're just going to drag this way. Press Shift H to see your selection. And then what we can do is maybe we can actually brighten this side up. And we can maybe actually add in a little bit of warmth to this window. This one is your what? Like this. Maybe we want it to come in through this way like this. So we have a before and an after to this clip right here. Maybe our clip is looking a little bit too contrasty, but we can fix this afterwards. But here we've added a before and an after like this. So this is looking okay. Maybe we then continue with adjustment frame and keep adding our power windows. So maybe this time we want to add it to the left, this way. And then this way, maybe I want to darken this side up now. So I'll just use my gain here. Maybe I want to add in a little bit of coolness. So instead of my gamma, in my midtones, I'll add a bit of blue. Then you have a before and an after. And overall, it's looking okay, but just with the power windows, what we've done is before, we've taken this image from before to an after. And overall, it kind of looks okay, but maybe actually I will have to adjust my global adjustments ever so slightly. So I'll come over to my global, I'll come over to my curves, I'm going to raise the shadows ever so slightly. I'll bring the midtones down. I'm just going to bring my gain down like this. And add in a little bit of contrast like this. Make myself smaller. And you can see we have this cool, so this is without doing the global, this is with, and for me I prefer darker images, so you might be like, this is so dark, but it's looking okay. If you're wanting to match this coolness with the coolness here, you can use go back to your Power Window 3, add in some blues here as well. And what you can do is just keep dragging this quite far up like this. Maybe you don't want it to be as dark as it is right now. It's looking okay. And then maybe in the global image, we actually wanted to add some coolness to the shadows like this, and then maybe some color to our midtones like this. I'll zoom in for you. And then before and then after, and we have a bit more of like a detective type of look. And maybe we didn't want this Power Window 2 to be as warm as it is. I mean, you can make it even warmer. Actually, it looks kind of sick. Maybe you want to darken it up there ever so slightly, but maybe actually you wanted to add just ever so slightly bit of green like this, and maybe you actually want to desaturate that part of the image. So before and then after, ever so subtle. And from the global and the adjustments that without the global, we kind of have this like here. But with the global, without our power windows that we've utilized, this is a before. So this is, let me apply the global. So this is without what we've done with the power windows, and then with, and this is literally just from power windows. We've brought a little bit of life to the skin, utilizing contrast, and I can't remember if we use curves. We darkened this right hand side right here. We brightened up this side a little bit, and we added some color, and we did a little bit of a split toning by adding blue to this right side of the image and adding a little bit of green to this side of the image, so we get a bit of color separation. And then both of those points are meeting, so this green and this blue is meeting right here within the orange of the skin. And then we have this really cool talking headshot that's looking pretty cool. Now if we then come in and add a little bit of output blanking, I'll move my tilt downwards. We now have this cool, quite cinematic type of look, and that is simply from Power Windows. Again, this is utilizing the Davinci Resolve start to power grade, but we've created our own look, and hopefully you can understand how powerful Power Windows are, how awesome they are, and I absolutely love them. So we have the same clip from the same story right here, and if I was to press the middle button of my mouse, it'll copy that grade, or we can right click, press apply grade, and it'll apply the grade. And we have a similar kind of thing that's applied to here, and then you can simply just kind of match it with contrast levels, etc., and then readjust where your power windows kind of fell. So I'm just moving these as they were, so maybe that was coming from this side because the opposite angle. This is coming in about here, and yeah, that's just a bit darker in blue. And then you have this kind of look. He looks a little bit more saturated than she was, so maybe we just decrease his saturation and we actually bring him down ever so slightly. Then we have this kind of cool look. So we have a before and an after, and again with the power windows, we have a before without the power windows, with the power windows. And you can see how much of a difference it makes to this scene. The same thing applies to everything else. I guess what we do with this clip, what I wanted to go over, I'll get rid of the output blanking, is we can utilize the Davinci Resolve start to power grade, but I'm going to also utilize some of the new Volt power grades that we released. So I'm going to apply Cinema TNO, and already this has given me a beautiful starting point. The reason why I've applied this is because we can utilize the glow in here. If you use a glow node within the Davinci Resolve start to power grade, all you have to do is just drag, go to your effects, search glow, which I've done here, drag that upon a node, and maybe one of the adjustment nodes, and you can then start, basically have this a similar kind of starting point. Then what you can do is press this gradient window now, and I press Shift H. Now what we're doing is we're power windowing, we're masking the glow. So now you can see that without this gradient, you can see it's hitting this bottom part of the path, which maybe we don't want, and now it's only hitting the sky. So now we can drag this up and down or wherever we wish, and bring this downwards, and bring this in like this. And then we can come over to our effects, and we can increase the brightness, we can increase the saturation of that glow, and we have this really kind of cool kind of glow. And you can then go into color grading your particular clip however you wish. You can add a little bit more warmth to the image. Now because I've adjusted that post, maybe we actually need to decrease that saturation of the glow. And then just with the glow we have a before and an after, and you can see without utilizing the gradient we would have affected the fall with it. I mean, I know you have the shine threshold which you can adjust here, but say you wanted that same strength within just the sky, you're going to be affecting the floor, which we don't want. So we're utilizing this, and then we have this kind of dreamy type of look like this, which is kind of cool. So that's a glow. The next thing is you also do have halation. So if I was to turn glow off, we do have halation here, And then with this halation within this particular power grade, you can utilize it in the free version of Davinci Resolve. Say we're happy with this level of halation. It is very, very strong, but say we're happy with it. We can do the same thing, gradient mask here, and look where it's kind of affecting. Now we're only affecting this part of the sky here, and not the bottom part of the sky. But we can drag this down, and we can just kind of gradually ease it out a little bit, even this way, like this. And then maybe you can even pair it with the glow, bring the gain down ever so slightly like this, increase the spread, make it a little bit brighter, and then you have this kind of even more dreamy. Like, I'd probably turn down the halation a little bit, but for this, it's looking pretty nice. So you can utilize Powerwindows not just with like these stuff, like just adjusting your contrast, adjusting your shadows, adjusting your brightness, adjusting your saturation, whatever it is. You can also do it with effects. So with this glow, with this halation, we can also do it with something like this. So we have another example that I have here is this car that we have here. Maybe you're wanting to remove or blur out this number plate that we have within this car here, and that's what we can kind of do within this clip. Maybe this time I'm going to use narrative version 1, press apply grade. And here we have this clip right here. I mean, do you have a good starting point? But let's say we're wanting to get rid of, you've done your grade, so I pretend I've just done my grade. Now wanting, the car manufacturer's like, we love this shot, but we need the number plate to be covered up or blurred out. Please, can you do this? Now, to do that, you can utilize Powerwindows once again. It may be easy to do this actually with something called a magic mask, but that is probably a tutorial for another time. So for today, I'm just going to showcase to you how to get rid of that. So on a random clean node, you're going to have this. You can come over to your Powerwindows like this, and here you may think there's two things that you can maybe do. You can draw with your pen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is something that I'd probably do because it's probably just a bit faster. Or you can just draw this square, but this is like a lot more cumbersome a bit because you have to like drag these points. So I find it's a lot easier, but I'm just gonna use the pen. I'm gonna use the pen because I can control things a lot easier. I'll reset, I'll delete this. So come over here, come over to your pen tool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just drag this. You can press Shift H to see your selection. This card is fine to showcase the number plate's fine. I just gave you a situation and scenario. So here I'm just gonna ease out my feather just ever so slightly, and then to remove this, let's say we wanted to. You can come over to your radius and you can simply just increase this. Now we've blocked out the number plate, and you can use your color grading skills, whatnot, to however wish. You can have it a little bit, and then you can just kind of make it black if you so wished instead. Just really black it out. That's a little strong. I kind of liked this, it kind of worked. Now we need to track it. So the next thing I'm going to do is come over to my tracker, and then what we've already done before, and I'm hoping it tracks okay. There wasn't too much movement in this particular clip as we saw at the beginning, but now what I am hoping is that it tracks okay. So we can press the back and forth like this. It did a very good job. So now when I press Command F and I press space, we've tracked our number plate. Now the number plate is tracked. It only took us maybe 2 minutes to do because the tracking is so good. And yeah, our client's happy. So that's another way of using Powerwindows, is to hide things. I'm just trying to think of what else that we can do. This clip, again, maybe I'll apply, what will we apply this time? Maybe apply this Mind Hunter. And we actually want our clip to be, let's say you do have this situation, I'll just add a vignette here, and what I'm actually going to do is, because it's annoying me ever so slightly, is this rail right here. I'm just gonna bring down the saturation, well, the gain of this side, so before and then after. Again, Power Windows we're utilizing here. Say we have this clip of this character moving up some stairs, like this. But we want this character to have, we're happy with the contrast and everything for the rest of the image, but for this character, we want them to be a bit more contrasty. We want them to stand out a little bit more than the rest of the image. So what we can do is try again. I'm going to drag these down, make one more node by pressing Alt-S. I'm going to bring this here. We're going to do the same thing as we did at the beginning. We're going to bring a circle, and because the circle will kind of cover most of him like this, we'll start at the beginning actually. Drag this around him. Now there isn't too much separation in this clip, which is problematic for the masking because it makes it harder for it to mask. I'll bring this up like this. Let's go over to our masking, which is here, our tracking, sorry, and I'll just track it. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. It didn't track it at all. Did a zero job. I'll add some contrast just so we can kind of see. Here, you can see that mask literally just stays in that corner. So what we have to do in these situations without utilizing Magic Mask, which will probably do an excellent job of this actually, but I feel like this is very important for you to know, as there are situations where this is the only thing that you can kind of do. So what we're going to actually do is come over to Frame, and I'm going to first start it here where we do want it to start, but then let's say our ending point of our image is here. And we're just going to drag this here, and I'm going to rotate it here. Now when I press play, you can see it does move with our character and it does an okay job. But sometimes a character will go, here's point A and here's point C, but a character may not just go in a linear fashion to point C like this, which is in this case, that's why it kind of worked okay. A character might go point A, point B, and then point C. So if it was to just have the same manner of this power window being applied here, the power window is going to be going like this in a linear fashion, but what we actually need the power window to do is go down. I think, yeah, you can see me. Go down this way and then go this way. So I can kind of showcase to you how we can kind of do this with this, because it did track it pretty well, but it didn't track it. Look here, maybe I wanted it to be pushed a little bit more towards the right, because it was just kind of lagging a little bit behind. So here in the beginning, it's actually a little too fast. So still in frame, you're just going to drag this towards the right here. Now you can see it's going to stick with him a little bit more. Whenever your character goes out of frame, just move it ever so slightly, and then move it again ever so slightly. You don't want to do it, have the points too close together, unless they're really close together and you're doing it one frame by one frame by one frame, which is basically like rotoscoping. Here is fine. So now we've tracked him perfectly. Now that is that, and it's a lot better than what we had before, where the masking just didn't track him. Now we can actually work on the particular grade. Here we want to add a little bit of contrast. I'm just going to use my curves. I'm going to add a bit of contrast to the bottom, and you can see it's selecting this whole square, but again we can feather out in a second. Maybe then I wanted to increase the midtones and highlights ever so slightly. So we've added that bit of contrast. So we have a before and an after. You can see how the character kind of pops out ever so slightly. Then we can come here and we can feather it out. And a feather out will just kind of just blend that mask in really, really nicely. And now when I press play, you can clearly definitely see it, so you can go even more harsher on that mask. And you can still see it. So what it's done actually is I made the mistake here. So you saw what I did there. I undid it now by accident. I was still in frame when I adjusted that. So the outer radius, the red radius, went out and then out and in and out and in and out and in. And that is not what we want. So whenever you're going to do that, go back to your clip, because that's your overall image and it's not going to do any of the keyframing. So what you're going to do is just increase this, and it should stay all the way throughout. So maybe I can increase this crazy heavy like this. So before and then after. And now you can barely tell that there's a mask being in play, but we still have our look being applied to our character here. So before and then after, and it's being applied. So that is probably the most advanced that you kind of need to know at the moment. Again, Magic Mask is so much better. Should I showcase it to you? Just because why not? Why not? So we have this node number, just this next node, whatever node tree you're using. If you're using the starter power grade, same thing, just make another node. Or just do it on this node, if you wanted to mess around with it. You're going to come over to this next one. Again, this is only going to work in the studio version of DaVinci Resolve, unfortunately. So you're going to come back here, and all you're going to do is you're going to make sure you have AI Magic Mask 2. I know there is a 1 that you can still use. You're going to press Better here, select this character, press Shift H. It's only selected the face, that's how selective it is. Select another one on the suit here, and boom! We have a crazy selection on our character. Then what you want to do maybe is track it. So what you have to do is track this back and forth, as we always do. It's messing up, but getting this because of all the contrast levels and stuff. Ideally, you want to do this before your global node. You want to do this probably after your balancing nodes and stuff. Before you've created your look, because when you create your look, sometimes if you're working in monotone or two-tone or three-tone, you're losing a lot of colors. So here, if I come over here and I just add some, just so you can kind of see some green. Just an okay, but that is because if we're looking at the science of these node trees, we're doing this after the global. Within the global, what we've done is we've added these super yellow casts to the image, and DaVinci is really going to struggle to identify the differences between particular things, because all DaVinci looks at is like ones and zeros. I mean, I guess this is using AI, so it probably can recognize objects now, but it's still going to struggle a little bit more. So we have this. Obviously, you're never going to push an image this hard. So maybe it may still work if we just increase the contrast ever so slightly like this. So we do have a before and an after. Maybe we actually want to increase it ever so slightly and make him less yellow, more blue. So before, you can't see here, before and an after. It's really subtle. Before and an after. Well, no. Before and an after. Maybe I'll bring it up ever so slightly more. Like this, before and an after. And then you press play. And when you do it very subtly like this, it works perfectly fine. Now you saw here that this banister, where my face is, comes around, it does a little bit of a curve. We did target that banister here, so what we can actually do is, same thing again, tracking, we can go to frame, make it start here where it was. I'll just move it just so it can make a keyframe. I'll move it towards the end frame. I want it to basically end. I mean, it's not going to cover all of it. I want it to maybe end here. Oh, it's done like a, it decided to go the other way. Reset. Start here. Move it here. Don't do 360. Okay. So as you can see, it's moving along now with the railing, and you can just keep moving it across, I guess. You'd probably need to make two, or you just draw a pen tool. I'm just showing this to you with this tool right here. So now it's not really, ignore this. You probably just want to use pen tool and then just draw around it like we did before. soften it, probably on the outside, on the inside, like this. Probably quite heavily on the outside actually. Track this. Didn't do a very good job. Frame, stretch this up, stretch this downwards, stretch this across. And then yeah, we have this, the banister is now somewhat tracked. I mean, I didn't do the best job here. You can spend more time doing it. I've already showcased to you once. But you can kind of understand kind of how it works. And you can also just target this area of the image just with the luminance values of the image and just bring the highlights down. So look how bright it is there. We can come over to our global actually, come over to our HDR, and just come over to probably our highlights and bring these down. And then you don't have to worry about that as much. So now we've sorted it out this way, but maybe you didn't have that option and you wanted to do it the other way. There's many different ways to solve one problem in Davinci Resolve with color grading. There's always loads and loads of different ways to do it, and no way is the correct way. Some ways yes, maybe easier, and when you have a little bit more knowledge of Davinci Resolve, there will be ways to do things a lot faster and a lot easier and just things that make more sense. But sometimes just going with what you kind of know is just the best way forward. So I hope this kind of made sense. I went through most of the clips that I kind of wanted to go through. We did have these other clips that I didn't really need to go through today. Like this one, you can mask the eye even, and then add a funky color to the eye if you so wished. So why not apply narrative clean? We have this looking image here. Bring the image down ever so slightly like this. Now we have our bird here. I'll come over to my main object here, drag a pen tool, just a very general one around this eye. Shift H to see your selection, just done an OK. Reset this. Track it. It's done a decent enough job. And then what we can do is I like adding, you found this now, I like adding brightness through contrast by increasing contrast, then shifting the pivot downwards like this. And then we can just outside, ease that out if you so wish, inside, ease it in. And then if you look at before and after and press play, you can see we've brightened up the eye this way. There's one more thing maybe I should go over. You've done this really general mask. Sometimes you can make a very, very general mask. But there'll be color separations within like this bird's face where we just want to target the eye, which is this deep red-brown color. But we don't want to target the rest of its eye, which is a bit more of a blue, aqua, all these random colors that own a brighter luminous value as well. So you can actually pair this with the qualifier as we've looked at within the first lesson, and simply go over to your qualifier. You can always try it first and just select this part of the eye. Now I press Shift H, fantastic. It's done a great job. And you can actually increase the blur radius ever so slightly. And when I press play, perfect. I mean, now what you may want to do is change the hue. You want to change the hue of the eye color? Let's change the hue. Let's reset everything. Brighten this part of the image and change the hue to be like a blue color. Like this. So before and after. Now you have this bird with this blue eye. You can change this maybe to like a, to be fair, that blue was a pretty good example, to be honest. We can even just saturate the eye now. So before and then after, you don't even have to change the color. Look how much more that eye just pops off, like before and then after. And we've tracked it with minimal effort. And this might be an example where it's better than using Magic Mask, because you're utilizing qualifier and just tracking, and it was super easy. And yeah, it's almost like editing a photo sometimes. It's mad how powerful Davinci has gotten these days. But yes, that is the tutorial for today. I think we've covered most, if not everything, you kind of need to utilize for color masking with Powerwindows. So I hope you do find this helpful. Again, just use Davinci Resolve Start to create that kind of showcase to you, or just create how you wish. And just go from there. Whatever you want to do, just create. The main thing, as I always kind of go about, is ensure that you enjoy the image that you create. Of course, when you're working with clients, it's a bit of a different story because you kind of have to go with their needs. But for your own personal work, which I always recommend you always do on the side, as it'll keep your passion for filmmaking alive, just whatever you like, just do it. Just keep doing it. And that's what will help kind of create your style. And the more you experiment and the more you learn to do new things and the more inspiration you take from film stills and other creators and filmmakers and stuff, the more you'll be able to discover, this is what I enjoy, this is the type of imagery that I enjoy, and go from there. Like for me personally, I prefer much more darker imagery compared to most people, but that's just my preference, and somebody might prefer much more brighter, high contrast imagery. But again, this is all everyone's preferences, and that's what makes filmmaking and films and stuff just quite wonderful, because nothing is ever the same and everyone's is a little different, and it's quite nice to experience different perspectives on things, because you also learn so much as well. But yes, that is enough of me yapping today. I hope you found this helpful, and yes, I'll see you in the next lesson hopefully.